for attendees, Dan LaSalle, Niche Clinic. He's a financial literacy guy.
Hang on 1 second.
I can just write it in.
Let me get this straightened up. I'm sorry, what did you want me to put in?
Just
Yeah,
as
the
an
mics are hot.
attendee, Dan LaSalle. He's not speaking.
Indeed.
Yes.
Dan LaSalle?
Yes. Thank you so much.
And who is Dan LaSalle?
He's the director of the Niche Clinic, NICHE Clinic, financial literacy organization. Forgot about that. Sorry about that.
Okay. It'll just be a couple minutes. We're waiting on one more person who's coming down the chairlift. Is everybody ready? All right, is everybody ready? Good morning. Thank you for your patience, and thank you all for being here. This is the DAO's weekly press conference, which we do on Mondays. And as always, there are two main topics. One of them is an update on the prior week's gun violence, and the other is a separate topic. Today, we think a very interesting and very important topic, and that topic is the DAO's Emerging Adult Initiative Program. Simply put, the Emerging Adult Initiative Program is an effort to address public safety through careful attention to what we are doing in reference to defendants between ages 18 and 25, so people who are no longer in the juvenile system but are close to that age group, and who, according to the United States Supreme Court and according to all significant psychological research, are mentally in a different place than adults who are fully grown. As I said, this is a public safety effort. The individuals eligible for the Emerging Adult Initiative are not shooters. They are not felons in possession of a firearm. They are people who are charged with other kinds of offenses and who require the sort of individualized justice that makes us safer. So I'm delighted to acknowledge people who are here in relation to this press conference. We have with us attending, although not speaking, we have Dan LaSalle. He is attending. He is from the Niche Clinic, where he is the director and addresses issues of financial literacy. We have First Assistant Carolyn Engel-Temin from the DA's office, First Assistant Robert Listenby, also from the DA's office. We have with us, although she will be with us a little bit later, we have Keisha Hudson, who is the Chief Defender for the Defender Association of Philadelphia. Sangeeta Prasad is a Stoneley Fellow who has been working in the District Attorney's office now for a few years, and this is one of her proudest achievements. We have ADA Nicole Elmer, who is working in the DAO's Emerging Adult Unit. ADA Caleb Arnold, who is the DAO's Immigration Counsel and heads that unit, but has also been instrumental in founding this unit since its beginning. We have Lauren Grant from the DA's office, who is also working in the unit. Susan Gallen, also working in the unit. And we have CJ Arayata, who works with the DAO Data Lab. That is his day job, but he has been assisting very significantly with this effort. We have Reverend Myra Maxwell, who is now the Executive Director of the DAO's Victim Services Support Division. As we mentioned earlier, she is now in charge not just of CARES, where she previously was in charge, but she's also in charge more broadly of all efforts on behalf of victims and witnesses. You'll be hearing from her briefly a little bit later. We have with us Adrian McGill, who is the Director of Support Services for PowerCore PHL, as in Philadelphia. Marcus Hall, Director of Workforce Development at Beyond Literacy. We have Sylvester Lally, who is the Director of Administration at the Institute for the Development of African American Youth, also known as IDAAY, I-D-A-A-Y. We have Andy DePestri, who is here from the Energy Coordinating Agency. Percy Bilal Allen, here from PowerCore, the Trust Program of PowerCore. And we are delighted to have the opportunity to be here with Reverend Isaiah Banks, Senior Pastor at this church, who's been kind enough to open these doors, and who will also have comments to close out this press conference. Let me turn briefly to gun violence during the last week. The year-to-date homicides, year-to-date, are at 43. This date last year, and of course this covers the period January the 21st through January the 27th. But this date last year, there were 48. This is a decrease of 10% as compared to last year. Obviously that decrease doesn't mean much to people who are living in a neighborhood, listening to the sounds of gunfire, trying to shield their children. But at least it is going in a better direction. There were 6 homicides, 25 non-fatal shootings during this time period. As we have mentioned several times in the past, the average during the pandemic period has been about 1.5 homicides per day in Philadelphia, which averages out to about 10.5, so 6 homicides is a little bit below that. There were 131 meaning gun possession or gun violence incidents during that time period. Police made 76 arrests, and based on the 76 arrests that the police brought to the DA's office, we opened and charged 75 cases. The median bail set for illegal possession of guns was $100,000, which, as you know, is not really $100,000. 10% bail is permitted, and then a third of that is permitted from people who do bail bonds work. The median bail set for violent offenses with guns was only $250,000. Once again, you don't have to pay $250,000. You don't even have to pay $25,000. You have to pay a third of $25,000 if you are able to obtain it from a bail bonds person. We had a, I don't want to say unusual, we had a typical victory this week in Philadelphia court. Even though Allegheny County is no longer doing jury trials, we are. And so a young attorney in our office by the name of Katie Woods had a victory in a shooting case before a jury. I called her to congratulate her myself. This was a matter in which a defendant fired 2 shots into a van. And thanks to the good work of the police and some pretty good prosecution, the jury was persuaded, not only by testimony, but by ring camera video, that the defendant was in fact the person who had committed that crime. We'll have specifics for you on sentencing. Sentencing has not occurred yet. It will occur later. Nevertheless, the news is not all good, and I'd like to talk about 3 shootings in particular. On Friday, January 28th at about 9:28 p.m., 3rd District police officers responded to the area of 700 Rittner Street for a report of gunshots. No complainants were initially located. However, 9mm fired cartridge casings were located, and the scene was held for processing by the PPD. A short time later, officers were notified that 3 shooting victims were dropped off at Methodist Hospital by private vehicle. All 3 victims were treated for non-life-threatening injuries. No arrest has been made by PPD at this time. The investigation remains active, Anyone with information should contact South Detective Division at 215-686-3014. On Thursday, January 27th at about 7:30 p.m., on the 3300 block of H Street in the 24th Police District, a pizza delivery man was approached by an approximately 35-year-old male. The male pointed a gun at the victim's head and attempted to carjack the victim. The complainant then pulled out his legally owned weapon and fired multiple shots at the male, firing what appears to have been 7 times and striking the male 6. The male arrived at Temple University Hospital, and by the male, I mean the carjacker, was treated and held by police as a prisoner. The defendant, Marquette Berrien, was charged by the DAO on January the 28th, was arraigned on January the 30th, and bail was set at $1 million. So it is possible. My goodness. Every now and then, we actually get a bail that is reflective of the tremendous danger that a defendant presents to society. On Thursday, January 27th, at about 10 a.m. on the 200 block of West Oxford Street in the 26th District, a 48-year-old Hispanic male attacked his 67-year-old father. The father then shot the son 1 time in the groin. A struggle ensued, and the son got control of the weapon. The son then shot his father 1 time in the head. Both males were transported to Jefferson Hospital by medics. The son was later arrested by police. The son is Ronald Hernandez. He was charged by the DAO, and his bail was set at $2 million. Once again, it is possible for appropriate bail to be set in cases where the defendant presents a profound danger to society. We are going to continue to fight for justice on behalf of our communities and families impacted by gun violence. It is now my honor to introduce Myra Maxwell for a 2-minute report regarding the DAO's outreach to victims and co-victims for the week of January the 21st through January the 27th of 22. Reverend Maxwell.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, D.A. Krasner. For the week of January 21st through the 29th, I'm going to speak a little bit about the CARES program. That's the Crisis Assistance Response and Engagement for Survivors of Homicide program under the DA's office. We have served 5 families throughout the week, extending approximately 20 services to those families. We provide immediate response to those families. As soon as we are notified, we are in touch with those families. We are reaching them to support them through the process, especially in the immediate aftermath of a homicide death. We will continue to provide those services as much as we can and as often as we can, because it's very important that we are in contact with them very early on in this process. In the CARES program, we have to make sure that you understand that we are working whether there's an arrest in the case or no arrest in the case through the CARES process. So that means that if there's a family member and there's no arrest, we are still providing support to those families in the immediate aftermath of a homicide death. For our Victim Witness Unit, we're very pleased to announce that we are adding 5 additional staff to our Victim Witness Services Unit, which is going to be very exciting for us. Our Victim Witness Coordinators in the DA's office serve in various units of the District Attorney's office, providing exemplary services to victims and witnesses that come through the court process. So we're very pleased that that unit is doing well and that we're adding additional staff. Of course, with the increase of crime in our city, we need to make sure that we are keeping up with all of those things as well, so we're able to support the victims and witnesses that our office will come in contact with. If you have any questions or if anyone needs to reach out to us, we can be reached at 215-686-8019. That's 215-686-8019. If you would leave a message, we will have someone to contact you immediately to support any victims, witnesses of any crime here in the city of Philadelphia. We want to be as much help as we can. Thank you so much.
All right, we are now going to speak in more detail about the Emerging Adult Initiative Program. I see our public defender Keisha Hudson has arrived. Thank you for being here as well. I'm about to introduce some people who have a lot more to say than I do on this topic. However, it's an important and exciting topic for anyone who actually wants public safety, for anyone who actually wants people to be safe and is tired of a bunch of politics around it. So I will have just a word or two to say, but let me do this. The following people are going to speak, and they're going to speak in order. After they have completed their comments, I will come back up and invite Reverend Isaiah Banks to say the final word here before we take questions. Those people, and I'm going to announce this so you all know your order, because I'm not going to jump up in the middle to reintroduce everybody. I think that's too time-consuming. But in the following order, we will hear from Sangeeta Prasad, followed by ADA Nicole Elmer, then First Assistant Listenby, then Chief Defender Keisha Hudson. Then we'll have Marcus Hall from Beyond Literacy, Sylvester Lally from IDA. We will have Percy Bilal Allen speaking about his life story and the possibilities of change. And we will also hear from Andy DePestri. Then I'll get up. Then we'll hear from Reverend Banks. So why is this important? Why is this interesting? Why should you care? You should care if you care about public safety. The United States Supreme Court made some extremely important decisions that will be talked about for at least another 100 years in the last 10 or 15. Two in particular. The first one was that even where a judge and a jury had sentenced someone who was involved in a homicide, someone who was convicted of murder, to death, even where that happened in the past, it was unconstitutional. And that execution could not be carried out. Why? Because in-depth, modern psychological research made it clear that those people, because they were involved in that crime before they were adults, were less capable of thinking of the consequences, and they were more capable of rehabilitation. That psychological research also became the basis of a second incredibly important case. And that second incredibly important case said not only can you not execute them, but you cannot just give them life sentences for exactly the same reason, because the psychological research makes it clear that the brain is not mature until about 25. Obviously, it varies a bit with each individual, but not mature until 25. For those of you familiar with Brian Stevenson, author of the book Just Mercy, these were his cases. This is his legacy. And the Supreme Court is absolutely right that it would be illegal, unconstitutional, and immoral if we didn't recognize that, but perhaps more importantly, it would be against public safety if we do not recognize that. So what does that mean? We have a juvenile system already. We have a juvenile system that has always embraced the notion that is primarily about rehabilitation. Obviously a smart move for public safety. We have an adult system in the United States that has always embraced the notion it's about punishment. Well, punishment has its limits if it makes us less safe. And so, what is required for people who are between the ages of 18 and 25 is individualized consideration, careful consideration of appropriate cases that bears in mind the people involved in those crimes are less capable of consequential thinking, and they are more capable of rehabilitation. In practical terms, what does this mean? We are not here talking about shooters. We are not here talking about people charged with first-degree felony rape. We are not talking about hardcore violent offenses. We're not talking about people walking around, felon in possession of a firearm. We are talking about other cases, cases that are not that serious, cases that are not that violent, where in some instances what will be appropriate is the same conviction as if they were adult, but potentially with more opportunities for rehabilitation. Or we may be talking about conviction on a lesser charge because of the individual circumstances of that defendant, that case, the victim, if there is one, and the best interest of society. And we may also, in certain instances, be talking about some form of accountability that does not include a conviction. In other words, diversion, with supervision, with requirements, with education, with treatment, whatever is necessary, all directed at the same thing, which is improvements in public safety. I will have a comment or two at the end, but this has worked. It has worked in other countries. It has worked in other places. And I'm talking about other places where there is a whole lot less crime and there is a whole lot less incarceration all at the same time. At this time, it's my honor to call forward Sangeeta Prasad.
Thank you, DA Krasner, and thank you everyone for being here. Yes, as DA Krasner mentioned, this is one of my proudest efforts. I was privileged to be spearheading this effort as a Stoneleigh Fellow. I've been with the District Attorney's Office for 3.5 years now, and this was one of the key areas of my work. I want to thank Stoneleigh Foundation for its unequivocal support of this work and the other areas of my work. And I want to acknowledge the team that is making the possibility of this emerging adult unit real. So as Larry mentioned, Caleb Arnold was a thought partner at the beginning of this process around 2 years ago. Along with Caleb Arnold, Carly Friedman, who is no longer with the DA's office but was then, was also an amazing thought partner. And we had technical support from Columbia Justice Lab. So I'd like to acknowledge them as sort of helping us lay the foundation for this work long ago. Caleb continues to work with the Emerging Adult Group as a part-time ADA, and we're very grateful for that. On our team as well are CJ Ariata, who is our data lab partner extraordinaire. Suzanne Gallen and Janet Morris are our paralegals, and Suzanne is here today. Thanks so much for being here. We have Lauren Grant is our newest ADA joining us, and we also have Mary Doyle, who is a victim advocate, is not here today, but we're very grateful for her work and her support in lending an expanded perspective to the DA's office approach to emerging adult cases. We also have advisors. Christina Bradley is the Director of Juvenile Social Services, and Reverend Greg Holston is a Senior Advisor for Policy and Advocacy, and they have been supporters throughout. Finally, we have Nicole Elmer. I have to say about Nicole as an ADA who came into this work full-time a little over a year ago. Her energy and her dedication has kept us not only going, but also growing. So I want to thank her as well, and you'll be hearing from her right after me. Around the city, we have numerous nonprofit partners. We have an incredible nonprofit network, and we have the Defender and the Defense Bar, and all together, we've been able to bring emerging adults who are already in the system into contact with service providers who can help improve outcomes for them. So why are we doing this, and why now? Well, the pandemic has left all of us with the pressures of isolation, uncertainty, and insecurity, not only in our jobs, but also in our education and our community connections. This is hurting emerging adults in an especially pronounced way because they are just trying to get their lives started. In the best of times, an emerging adult, because of their phase of brain development, can be impulsive, they can succumb to peer pressure, and they need mentorship. But in this time, because of what the world is going through, they are particularly in need of the contacts and the supports and the connections that traditionally the criminal justice system does not provide. The nonprofits across the country, or across the city, that have expertise in working with emerging adults know, as the scientists do, that a punishment-only model for emerging adults does harm. What we need is an evidence-based model, one that promotes tools that will help young adults react differently when they are faced with stress and trauma. And that is the work of this emerging adult unit, to connect them to exactly those resources so they can develop those tools. So what if we don't do this? What if we don't help emerging adults get on a better path? Well, the collateral consequences for them can be lifelong. With the use of background checks in almost every aspect of our lives, for emerging adults in particular, not just a conviction, but even an arrest can keep them from getting housing, from furthering their education, can keep them from getting a job or maintaining a job, and as some of you may know, can even keep them from getting a barber's license, something as simple as that. The consequences for emerging adults are exaggerated because if you are arrested or you are convicted at a young age, this can follow you. It can leave you stuck. It can keep you from moving on into productive adulthood. With the announcement of this emerging adult unit, DA Krasner's commitment to promoting a different model is incredible to see, and the announcement of this unit is really the first of its kind in the country. We did use models from other programs that exist across the country, but the unit being a separate, distinct space where this expertise can be developed and applied is really new. So we need this now more than ever, because if we can help emerging adults move on to paths that build them up, they will help build up our communities and it will help heal the city. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Nicole Elmer. I'm an Assistant District Attorney in the Emerging Adult Unit, and I have the pleasure and honor of speaking with you all today, and actually for the first time meeting a lot of our community providers in person, which has been really exciting for me. So I'm only going to be talking about two things, and I'm going to do it pretty briefly. The first is our process, and the second are our providers. So as DA Krasner mentioned, some of the cases that we do not take, and then obviously the age that we are focusing on, 18 to 25. Once we receive a case that fits within those basic parameters, we do an extensive review. We look at the case from top to bottom. We look at all the evidence, we look at any video associated with the case, and then if there's a victim, as Sangeeta Prasad mentioned, we do have a victim witness coordinator, Mary Doyle. We reach out to all of the victims, we get their input, and then we also ask if they've incurred any expenses. So if they had any property damage, any medical expenses, because we want to be able to include that restitution with whatever offer that we make to a young person. So that way the victim can get some money back for any damages that they incurred. So once we have established that extensive review and we find that a case is eligible, we reach out to defense attorneys. So that's usually the Defenders Association of Philadelphia, and then private attorneys or sometimes court-appointed attorneys, and we talk to them about what their client needs. So we go through those needs, and then based on those needs, we look at services. And that's when our providers come into place. So I want to talk about them each a little bit briefly. You're going to get to hear from two of them as well. But the first one that we started working with most recently is Mural Arts, and we have Kelly Silverman here today. She is the Restorative Justice Project Manager. Mural Arts, through their Guild program, has a hands-on approach for young adults who are court involved, and they work both professionally and personally for development of those young folks through hands-on experiences in the artist community. Second, we have IDE, which DA Krasner mentioned, the Institute for the Development of African American Youth. We have Sylvester Lawley, the Director of Administration here, and we also have James Washington, the Director of Communication, who's also present in the room. IDE has an incredible Young Fathers program that Sylvester is going to talk about more in depth, but I want to give y'all just a little bit of a taste of what they do. They meet every week, and it's really geared to people who identify as male and who are also parents. They focus on parental, basic parent skills, and then they also provide necessities like diapers and food. The Niche Clinic, which DA Krasner also mentioned, is founded and run by Dan LaSalle, who's also here. And Dan is very hands-on. He's awesome. He helps young folks open up bank accounts. He helps with resume building and with job searches. We have Beyond Literacy, Marcus Hall, who will be speaking, and also representing Beyond Literacy here today is Kimmel Proctor, who is the CEO. She's sitting right over here. So Beyond Literacy, you're going to hear from them more in depth, but something exciting, Beyond Literacy just received a grant, which they're going to be heading up a weatherization programming and also partnering with Lyft to provide safe rides. We have a representative from Lyft in the room as well. But again, just to give you guys a little bit of a taste, they have GED and literacy courses for folks who don't already have their GED. This has been pretty essential during the pandemic, especially because people have been trying to get jobs, and it's really hard to get a job when you don't have a GED or high school diploma. Finally, we have PowerCorps. Adrian McGill is here representing PowerCorps. He is the Director of Reentry Services. PowerCorps provides vocational training and job readiness with hands-on experiences. They have an urban farm, and they actually help folks learn gardening techniques from beginning to end. So the wonderful thing about all of the programs that we partner with and we refer cases to is that they provide incentives to participation and mentorship. Both of those things are two very critical points during this time of development for an emerging adult. You'll get to hear Mr. Listenby talk a little bit more about the brain science, but really without their work and without their exceptional intelligence and their intention for really trying to connect these young folks to services pretty quickly, our work would not be possible. So we're really happy to have them, and we're really happy that they've decided to come out and show their support today. So what I want to end on is really just that during this integral time of development for emerging adults, it's really powerful to have them surrounded by people who are telling them that they can do better and that they can be better and that they don't have to be defined by their worst action or decision. The District Attorney's Office serves the City of Philadelphia, and we really do believe that this work is going to make a big difference and improve public safety. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Bob Listenby. I'm one of D.A. Krasner's first assistants. To start off with, I'd just like to say, first of all, I'd like to thank the DA for his vision for young adults here in the city and county of Philadelphia. And I'd also like to thank Sangeeta Prasad, Nicole Elmer, for their outstanding work in helping to develop the Emerging Adult Initiative. I've been working with young people in the city and county of Philadelphia for over 30 years. I had the opportunity to work as a public defender for about 27 years, and now with the DA's office for 4 years. This is my life's work. I also had an interlude where I worked with the Department of Justice, working for the President of the United States and the Attorney General as head of the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. What D.A. Krasner said was profound. The adolescent science is going to fundamentally change the criminal justice system, not only of Philadelphia, but of the entire country. It is a strong and powerful science, so powerful that the United States Supreme Court in Roper v. Simmons first decided that we could no longer execute children. It went on to decide all the various decisions that D.A. Krasner referenced. It's important to note that this science has not yet been incorporated throughout the criminal justice system, either here in Philadelphia or throughout the country. But it's going to be. It's going to be. Just recently, the Congress passed a law saying that, under the Juvenile Justice Reform Act, saying that all young people who are arrested have to be held at a juvenile detention center. They can no longer be held in a state, on state road. Why? Because adolescent brain science dictates that. This science is so powerful that we're going to see more and more of it throughout the way. I want to recognize that young people, as Nicole mentioned, are not simply an example of their worst day and their worst decisions. They need second chances often. The Emerging Adult Initiative, through a lot of the resources that it's developed, is going to give a lot of young people here in the city and county of Philadelphia a second chance. It's going to give them better opportunities to be able to get an education, better opportunities to get jobs and do things that they want to do in their lives. This is really critical, and it's very important. I hope that those of you in the media will take time to study some of the decisions by the United States Supreme Court, study the brain science and find out how it applies to the work we're doing here, and study it and find out how it's going to make a difference going forward. But I'd just like to reference again that this is something that's going to change fundamentally what we're doing here and give us a better opportunity. When I first started out as a lawyer and as a public defender, I would talk to young people who were just simply not going to get another chance to do something better in their lives. Now I'm seeing that with opportunities for mentorship, with opportunities for jobs, with opportunities for better education, they're going to be able to do things that they never could have done before. So this is important. What's critical also is what's been stressed so far. This is going to make it more safe for those young people to return to their communities, more safe for them to be a part of what's going on. Now, when I first went to Washington as head of OJJDP, I talked to folks and they told me about reforming juvenile justice, a developmental approach, a book that they had spent $1 million on in order to get this publication to come out. It is now the guiding principle across the nation. I've spoken probably in about 30 different states about the importance of adolescent development. But what I know is this: if I've been able to gather together 10 grandparents and paid them a lot less than $1 million that the Department of Justice spent, I probably could have gotten the same wisdom about the importance of recognizing that children are not young adults. They're kids. They need to be treated like children and need to have opportunities and unique opportunities to overcome the mistakes they've made. The grandparents could have told me that. Adolescent development science tells us that. Reforming juvenile justice, the developmental approach tells us that. And so do all the other publications and cases that are coming out. One of the things that the Supreme Court finally said after about 5 or 6 cases, I think it was in Montgomery, they said, look, we're tired of explaining adolescent science. Go back and read Roper. Go back and read all these other cases where we've explained it in detail. I encourage you to follow the advice of the Supreme Court. Go back and read about it, understand it. Why? Because it's going to have a profound effect on criminal justice and juvenile justice and adolescent development justice across the United States for the rest of this century. So thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Keisha Hudson, Chief Defender, the Defender Association of Philadelphia. I want to thank DA Krasner. I think this is an incredible initiative. Thank you to Sangeeta Prasad for dedicating such an incredible time to developing this effort. I saw a tweet this morning, and the tweet was, "What do public defenders know about preventing crime?" I love initiatives like this. Because what they do is identify ways where we can intervene, address on an individualized basis what someone really needs. Public defenders are the most underutilized resources in the conversation about public safety. We have our clients sometimes starting very young, and we watch them sometimes transition to from the juvenile justice system to the adult justice system. We know what our clients experience. Many are from backgrounds of extreme poverty. Many are victims of violence or witnesses of violence. We know what they need, and we know what is critical if we are going to interrupt that cycle of further criminalization and break that cycle of poverty. And this initiative does that. I'm incredibly honored to work with District Attorney Krasner, with his staff, and want to also thank my staff for coordinating on this effort. When we talk about what will truly impact public safety, these initiatives will truly impact public safety. And public defenders are a part of that conversation and a part of that initiative. And we welcome the opportunity to continue to work with the DAO to expand initiatives like this. And again, just want to thank him for having us here, and thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Marcus Hall. I am Director for Workforce Development for Beyond Literacy. I'd like to thank the District Attorney's Office for inviting us to participate in this press conference discussing our partnership with the Emerging Adults Initiative. So Beyond Literacy is the largest federally funded adult literacy provider in the city of Philadelphia. We serve generally about 1,300 adult learners per year, 70% low income, about 40% English language learners, and generally about 50% of our students have had some impact by the criminal justice system, as well as those who are dealing with substance abuse issues, as well as many who are working through mental and physical disabilities. We recently launched our Keystone Energy Employment Pipeline Pre-Apprenticeship Program to really develop a direct bridge for our learners that represent an underutilized part of our Philadelphia workforce to enter the energy and utility industry. This program will not only train participants in areas such as carpentry, plumbing, electrical installation, but also focus heavily on contextualized reading instruction that will assist with not only being able to complete the GED exam, but also any other exam that our participants will be willing to take. That can include a CAS assessment, Ramsey's assessment, any assessment that's required for employers in order to move forward with their employment process. This program would not be possible if it weren't for the generous support from the William Penn Foundation, LIFT, the Energy Coordinating Agency, Andy, who is a recent graduate from the program, will be able to come and speak about his experiences, Jeff's Human Services, Pico Energy, among many others. But it's important to note that this is only the first step. Ultimately, no matter if you're an Afghan refugee who needs to learn English and wants to become a citizen, or someone returning home from incarceration who needs to learn new skills to enter into this evolving workforce, or even perhaps a student who did not receive the proper individualized support as a child and is working to really address their struggle to read and to write. I'm sure all of us can kind of attest as to how our issues or how our work right now would be impacted if we all had an inability or a struggle to read and write, whether it be a article, whether it be a sermon. We all can know what the impact of that is. So many of our students and so many of our community members are facing these issues every single day. When my mother passed away, I was 15 years old. I dropped out of high school, and ultimately it was my grandmother, who was actually a deaconess at this very church, who gave me the opportunity to make some money, and also, more importantly, gave me the time to try to figure things out. Not every participant in our program will end up becoming an electrician or a welder, but we can at least provide the space and resources to allow for participants to figure it out, to have that time to really be able to breathe, earn some money, or get some resources, and be able to know what the next step is with additional resources and support that we'll provide. When participants complete this program, we'll have a clear path forward into their next career that will provide a family-sustaining wage. We know poverty and unemployment are linked, but now, thanks to new research that are coming from our very own city, we can now clearly see that joblessness is more strongly related to crime than poverty alone. While it is important to make sure that our workforce has a presentable resume, job interview skills, and adequate communication skills, I challenge each of you to think about where you would be if you struggle to read. Ultimately, our goal within this program is to be able to provide that reading intervention, provide that job training, and provide resources such as cash stipends, transportation assistance, food resources, as well as student support in order to move our participants forward. So I want to again thank the support of the District Attorney's Office and also our many partners, and we're obviously excited to continue to be accepting referrals into our program, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. My name is Sylvester Lally, and I'm the Director of Administration for IDAY. IDAY is the Institute for the Development of African American Youth. Our program is the Young Fathers United program, where we teach young men to become strong fathers. Young Fathers United is a 13-week citywide program that offers weekly parenting workshops with a weekly stipend. Groups are Monday and Tuesdays. Our Monday group is from ages 26 to 40. Our Tuesday group is from ages 14 to 25. At our administrative offices, which is located at 2305 North Broad Street, from 5:30 to 7:30. Through workshops, we offer a multitude of different services, including but not limited to career exploration, resume workshops, mentoring, computer classes, diaper and clothing for their kids, male or female, interview closets for the fathers when we send them out for interviews or if they have interviews that they need for upcoming jobs, cell phone assistance. Can't have a job if you don't have a cell phone these days, so we provide assistance with that as well. We offer a cohort graduation, so after every 13 weeks, each group will graduate, so we will graduate our younger group and then our older group. We offer community service opportunities as well. We have an IDAY food pantry for anyone who is in need of food for our young fathers or anybody who is in the community, as well as weekly haircuts for our young fathers. We offer open enrollment, which is Monday through Friday from 2:30 to 6:30, again at our administrative offices, which is located at 2305 North Broad Street in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Our next cycle is set to begin on March the 7th, 2022. Some of the successes of our program shows that we assist fathers with building stronger relationships with their kids, but in addition to that, they're building stronger relationships with the kid's mother as well. So through all of those things, we do at IDAY. Thank you.
Hello, how you doing? My name is Percy Bilal Allen. I'm an alumni of the Trust program, and I'm just here to share my personal experience that due to the pandemic, it was hard to find employment, and I got introduced to the Trust program, and it has helped me out tremendously, and it helped me with being work ready, helped me be more professional, and also helped me mentally with my mental health due to, having a record. It also provided me with opportunities to be employed for the city, and it's also good to stay out the streets, and it helped me more than I can imagine. And all I can say is thanks to Brother Adrian. He's been sticking by me every step, and the trust program is 3 days out of the week from 8 to 3, and also have a Zoom sessions to just to talk about our days and how we doing, just to just reaching out mentally, and and that's what trust done for me. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Andy DePestri. I'm part of the ECA Energy Coordinating Agency. I started with them when I was a senior in high school. By that time, I didn't really think I was going to be doing too much where I would be at right now. I just turned 20 yesterday. Yesterday was my birthday, and I never expected myself to have about like 7 to 8 certifications in plumbing, HVACing. The program really changed my outlook of life and just me personally as a young youth. Mainly being born in Philly and not a lot of opportunities and a lot of poverty and not a lot of people motivated around me. I always thought I'll probably be working Burger King, Walmart, nothing much. But now it's like, after having to take these big certification tests that had like 100 questions, and I had to study and had to go to these long hour classes, it really taught me that even if I don't want to do HVACing, I can do anything, because as long as I put my mind in it and people are willing to support me, what is it that I can't do? So I would just say with these programs, they're very helpful for youth. They're changed their mentality, and it really pushed them to be a better person than what they were. Because sometimes some people just be in a dark place. They just need a little extra push to help them where they need to be at. Thank you.
I would like to once again thank the Reverend Isaiah Banks, Senior Pastor at the Second Pilgrim Baptist Church, for allowing us to use this facility for this purpose and inviting us into this house of faith. There are actually 2 Isaiahs here. I know at least one of them is going to speak, although I'd love to hear from the other one too. A very well-dressed, handsome young man, also named Isaiah, is with Reverend Banks. Reverend Banks, would you care to come forward?
Good morning. My name is Isaiah Banks. As you have heard, I serve as the pastor here at Second Pilgrim Baptist Church. I am grateful and appreciative, first and foremost, to Pastor Gregory Lamar Stewart for thinking of us, thinking of our church to hold this very, very important press conference, and to D.A. Krasner and to all who have already spoken. After hearing all of the remarks and comments and thoughts that were shared, it made me think of the words of the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King when he said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." I think that this is a very, very important subject, a very, very important matter that we all must take part in. The scripture says faith without works is dead. And a lot of times we try to make that super spiritual and supernatural, but I do believe that this is the work that we must do as a body of believers, as a faith-based institution. And if there is ever anything that we can do to assist you in any endeavors that you are doing, please do not hesitate to reach out to us or give us a call, because again, this is what we are called to do. We are called to do a work that will help empower our community, help empower our people, and particularly our youth and young adults. And so again, I am grateful and appreciative to each and every one of you, and if there's any way we can assist you, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you again. This is little Isaiah.
Thank you very much, Reverend. And little Isaiah. All right. If there are any questions for any of us, please feel free.
Is this brand new, or has this been in existence? And if so, can you say when it launched, how many staffers it has, and how many cases approximately the unit handle?
Sangeeta, would you care to take that?
This began approximately a year ago as an initiative, and the cases began to be reviewed about a year ago. As it's being turned into a distinct unit, today there are 6 staffers, 3 full-time and 3 part-time. And the full-time staff are 2 ADAs and 1 victim advocate, and the part-time staff are 2 paralegals and an additional ADA. We're looking at an initial review of about 500 cases per month at this point. And as Larry described and as Nicole seconded, there are several levels of review, so there may not be 500 eligible cases per month, but certainly the review of cases begins with about 500 per month.
Are there any other questions?
Can you describe the types of cases that this review? I know you mentioned ones that don't, but what types of cases are eligible?
So young adults are overrepresented in the criminal justice system. Pre-pandemic, about 1 in 4 cases coming into the adult system involved a person between 18 and 25. The most common charges that they were looking at were possession with intent to deliver. It could be, cannabis, or it can be other drugs. And that is one type of case that this unit does look at. There are also driving stolen car cases. There are theft cases. The unit does not do any family violence or sexual assault matters, any F1s, as Larry said, and also does not review or take cases that involve guns. So, we have several levels of analysis to ensure that we're not doing any of the cases that wouldn't qualify. But for the ones that do, the most common ones we see are possession with intent to deliver, theft, and car cases.
I would like to add to that comment that people should understand that while we are very selective, in a city that ordinarily has, at this time, 35, 30, 40,000 cases a year, to take a look at 500 cases a month means that we are looking at a group of cases, even though we are selective, that is a significant portion of our caseload. That should not be underestimated. We have other initiatives that we believe in very much, such as our restorative justice initiative involving juveniles. But the volume and scope of what it can accomplish because of the nature of that work, among other factors, is much narrower than this. This is the kind of thing that, if it is successful, could affect a significant number of cases in one of the biggest cities in America. And we think that's a good thing. We think it's a good thing because, for example, I can think of one country in particular where this has been fundamental to their approach for over 50 years. And what I mean by that is that they have tried to make the entire criminal justice system more like the juvenile system, more oriented towards rehabilitation, or as they call it, reintegration of people into society. They have invested in that rehabilitation not really for the sake of those defendants, but for everybody else's sake, because it makes everybody else safer in the long run. The country I'm thinking of has 1/9 the level of homicide that we have, and 1/9 the level of incarceration. It's a longer and interesting history that I'd love to tell you, but I know that there may be some questions in addition to the ones that we've heard already. Are there any more questions for anyone here? All right. That being the case, thank you very much.